things to the personal side of life and talk about motherhood. So, my son Henry turns 1 year old on Saturday. So I'm recording this on a Thursday. It's Saturday that he turns 1. And I thought it would be fun to come on and share with you all my first year of motherhood. Henry is my first son, my only child, and so this has been almost 1 full year since I have become a mama. I thought it would be fun to come on here and share with you my successes and my challenges of being a mother for 1 full year. No time to wait, let's begin. First and foremost, what was one of my first successes? Well, I would have to say that we are so fortunate and blessed, my husband and I, because we had a pretty easy time of getting pregnant, and compared to many people, I would say I had a pretty easy pregnancy. We knew that we wanted to get pregnant. We got married in the Dominican Republic 2 years ago. In the Dominican and all of these tropical places, this was the big Zika scare time. And so they said, don't get pregnant when you're traveling to these locations, and you can't get pregnant for 6 months after you return. And so we had our wedding plan for the Dominican, and we knew that we wanted to start building our family as soon as we got married. But because of the Zika, we wanted to follow the rules and be safe. So we did not start trying to get pregnant for 6 months. So we got married in January. So we started trying, and really I was tracking my ovulation. TMI, I know for everyone. I was tracking my ovulation. I was using an app on my phone. I was using little test strips, and we were being really intentional. And it really took us about a month to get pregnant, and I just feel so blessed to have that happen, because I know there are so many women out there who really struggle with that. And so we got pregnant. And, you know, we prayed everything would work out, and it did. And I did not love being pregnant. I will be the first to admit that. I, in the beginning, had a little bit of nausea and a little bit of dizziness, and my body was changing in ways that I knew was going to happen, but I wasn't super excited about. I know that sounds kind of silly, but the reality is, you know, I have been the same size since I was about 16 years old, and I didn't get pregnant until I was 31. And so having my body change was not, I thought I would accept it more as like, oh, I'm pregnant, it's great, but it didn't feel that great. But when I think about it now, when I look back at being pregnant, and I know other folks who have gotten pregnant and how hard and challenging their pregnancies were, just with the illness, the morning sickness that lasts all day, and the exhaustion, and just all of these other symptoms that they have, I realized that my pregnancy was really pretty easy. So I would say it was a success of getting pregnant and having a pretty easy pregnancy. A challenge. So our son is Henry, and Henry was born 6 weeks early. I'll do another video where I go through his whole birth story, but essentially my water broke one morning, and it was 6 weeks before our due date, and I didn't realize it was my water breaking at first, because it wasn't like the movies where it's a big gush. It was much more subtle than that. I was wondering, you know, did I pee myself or something? But it was my water breaking, and so we went to the hospital and we delivered him with really no complications. We got to the hospital, I think around 7 in the morning, and he was born around 5:30 that evening. And he did have to be in the NICU, which at the time seemed so challenging. He had nothing wrong with him. He was just little and needed to eat and grow. But I stayed with him 24/7 in the NICU. I didn't leave. I would leave about once a day to go shower at our house and come home. And Corey had time off so he could be with me all day, and then he would come home. We have 2 dogs, so he would come home at night and be with our dogs and then join me early in the morning. But when you're doing that, they do care times every 3 hours, and so you're up helping and feeding. I really wanted to breastfeed, so it was a challenging time just because we were in the hospital for 3 weeks. We didn't know when we were gonna get to go home. You see your baby, and Henry was born at 4 pounds 13 ounces, and he was so little, and I just wanted him to be okay, and he totally was, and now he's totally fine and like giant and adorable, so all is well. And I really think that brought Corey and I together. We really bonded and came together and were like, okay, we're gonna get through this. So it was a challenge, but in a way I now kind of look back at it with rose-colored glasses. Speaking of breastfeeding, that was one of our successes. So I really wanted to breastfeed, and it was not easy in the beginning. Everyone said it wouldn't be easy, and I actually attribute being in the NICU and having so many amazing nurses. If you're in Lincoln, Bryan Health, the NICU nurses there are all angels. And also the lactation consultants and specialists who are there, they helped me so much with breastfeeding. I had to use a nipple shield in the beginning with Henry to get him to be able to latch on, but we worked at it and we worked at it, and it wasn't easy. And he had a tube down his nose to his stomach in the beginning to make sure he was getting enough milk, but he would get that as I was breastfeeding, and we used donor milk, which bless those donors. So it ended up being a really good experience. I breastfed for 8.5 months before I was done. I really had hopes of going for a full year, but it just felt like the right time to end when we did. My supply was getting lower, he was getting more, you know, rambunctious, and so we just decided it was the right time for us to call it quits. But I feel like 8.5 months is really good, and I really am a huge component of fed is best. I have no shame or opinions if you breastfeed or you bottle feed. Like, it's really, really hard, and it's a personal thing, and your body does different things, and so just you do you, mama. Do you and get those babies fed, and that's all that really matters. Okay, challenge number 2. The second challenge that I would say was when we had our son early, it really shook me because I was really nervous about what does this mean, and now I'm a mom, and is my baby going to be okay? And my husband and I made the decision for me to stay home. So I also, after a few months of having the baby, let my work know that I wouldn't be coming back. I had been doing a side business of career coaching, and so I decided I'm gonna, you know, just do that more permanently as my work and be able to stay home with my baby part-time. But as exciting as all that is, it really took a lot of work for my mental energy of my identity. I really kind of lost who I was in that whole thing, just because I had never been a mom before, and now I'm a mom. I had always worked. I was the director of a career center. I had worked my way up from grad school. My identity was so wrapped into working in higher education, and now all of a sudden I had no job. I had never really even wanted to be an entrepreneur, and now I had my own business. And so I had all of these new identities that I was not familiar with, and it took a long time for me to understand, who am I, what is my worth, and realizing my worth was beyond my work that I did, and that I could be a full person without the job title and, you know, having the colleagues and all of those things. So that was challenging for me personally, of just dealing with, I'm sure, the like hormones that you have from just having a baby too, and having a new baby and being sleep deprived. But my whole identity changed beyond just being a new mom, and that is enough to change. but everything else changed too. Okay, success number 3, sleep training. You guys, so I was obsessed with the idea of sleep training Henry. Of course, in the NICU, he slept perfect and like never cried, and I thought, oh my gosh, we have an amazing baby. And then we brought him home and cry, and you know, he was a newborn. He was 3 weeks old, and he was still technically 3 weeks before his due date when we brought him home, because he was 6 weeks early. So he was just doing newborn stuff, and I was exhausted, and I was, you know, taking on the brunt of the responsibility, but I was reading books and blogs and Pinterest obsessively about sleep training. And I knew I couldn't do it right away, and so we had Henry in our room for the first 8 weeks, which wasn't the full 8 weeks home because we had 3 at the hospital, so for 5 weeks. And that worked good, but by 8 weeks I was like, he needs to go in his crib. So I put him in his crib, and then I'm not sure how long it was until, because I wanted to wait. A lot of the material you'll read says to wait till they're 4 months to start sleep training. I probably started a little before that, but it wasn't anything extreme. We really just started that nighttime routine because my husband and I are routine people. We love routines, we get in a routine, so we knew like we have to get this baby on a routine. So we started, okay, when it's bedtime, you're gonna have your bottle, and then you're gonna have your bath, and then we're gonna put your pajamas on, and then we're gonna read you a book, and then we're gonna shut the lights off and sing you a song and put you in your crib, and that's bedtime. The routine saved us. He fell into it easily. Some people will say you give him a bath every night, and we still do because that's his bedtime routine, and he knows it, and he settles down great. And it didn't happen overnight. I mean, we had to work at this, even had to work at what the routine was, but the routine was a huge lifesaver, and so that helped. We didn't do a ton of cry it out, but he was such a good baby with sleeping, we didn't have to. I did have a few nights where I would let him cry, and that is pure torture, but I think also necessary at some points, because now Henry goes to bed. This is shocking for most people, but he goes to bed. He is asleep by 6 p.m. We start bedtime around 4:45, which now it includes like a little bit of a bottle, which we have to get away from, and then eating dinner with the family. We have dinner very early because of this, and then bath time, and then pajamas, and then reading a book, and then going to bed, and he's asleep by 6 p.m. and he sleeps all the way through the night until about 6:30, 7 in the morning. I don't wake him up. I don't get him out of bed, out of his crib before 6 a.m. and I don't let him sleep past 7. So that has worked really well. I will link some resources down here for you, but some of them that I used there were some Facebook groups that were really good to use. There's a Respectful Sleep Training Facebook group that I really read a lot of. In that group, they have a bunch of resources, and one of the resources I found was the 4-day sleep solution, and I printed it off, and I cherished that with everything that I had. I also read Baby Wise. I love that. I think it's great to follow, and I love to give it to any of the new moms that I know. And then honestly, just blogs. Just reading to see what's out there. I knew not everything worked for us, not everything fit in with our life, but it was good to just have the resources, or when something would happen, to see, is this normal? How do people respond to this? So it was challenging in the beginning, but I'm glad we stuck to it, because now he sleeps at night like a champion, and I just pray that that keeps happening. The third challenge Henry did have a little reflux when he was born. He was preemie, so that is quite typical. What this meant was when he would sleep, we tried to sleep him at an incline. So in our room, we had this little bassinet that would incline that we would keep him in. And then once we moved him to his crib, I actually took books under the side of the crib with his head and put them under the legs. So it was inclined, and then we even had a little wedge we put under the mattress so he was inclined, which helps with their reflux. He was on Zantac for babies that our doctor prescribed, and then I had him on a probiotic that we got from the store. I think it's the Gerber Soothe. Those things seem to help with the reflux really well, because in the beginning when we brought him home and he was just throwing up so much and crying all the time, that was really exhausting. So getting the reflux under control was a lifesaver. For the most part, Henry eats just what we eat and he loves it. We sometimes eat spicy food, and I try to make it less spicy when we're giving it to him, but he can eat it all pretty much like a champ. I think my favorite memory is I went to get ramen with a friend, and I didn't give him the ramen because he's never good at eating soup, but they had dumplings, so I ordered those and, you know, kind of tore them apart into little pieces, and he ate so much dumplings, so many. I mean, it was just crazy. So I'm pretty proud of him, because I like to pride myself on being someone who will eat or try anything. Once in China, I ate a cicada. I actually ate two. Not to brag, but I'm pretty adventurous when it comes to eating. And I just kind of want my son to be that way too. So I've been really happy that he's been such a good eater, and it's just made life so easy as he's gotten older that we can pretty much put anything in front of him and he eats it all up. And then the last challenge that I am experiencing in this first year of motherhood is getting Henry off the bottle and onto a sippy cup and milk. I don't have a lot to say about it because I don't know what to do. He turns 1 on Saturday, like I mentioned at the beginning, and he still has 2 bottles a day, 6 ounces in the morning and in the evenings, and then I'm trying to give him a sippy cup with whole milk in it. I've got to heat the milk up a little bit, but he's not a fan. He can use a sippy cup, he's not great at it. So if you have any suggestions or tips or resources that could help me, please leave them down below in the comments. I would love that so much. And that is all. That is what I have down. I'm sure there's many more things. I could probably do another video later after I watch this about more successes and challenges, but I don't want you to be here all day. Thank you so much for listening to my stories. If you're a mom, what are your successes and challenges? Let's start the conversation. I think it's so good to talk about the things that we have accomplished, but also the things that are hard, because when you're a new mom, there's so much that is hard, especially in the moment. So let's support one another. That's what this community is for. So subscribe to my channel if you want to know more about me or my career coaching business. Check out my LinkedIn, my Facebook, or go to my website at collinscareercoaching.com. Thanks for being here today. Bye.